I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, we're into October 2024. I would be remiss if I didn't do at least one video on the upcoming BC election. It's Saturday, October the 19th. You guys know how I feel about politics and politicians and the NDP and the Conservatives and the Liberals as well. So I'll give you my disclaimer that I always talk about. I'll give you my opinions on who I'm voting for. I'll let you know who I'm voting for. I already released that on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. I announced that I am going to be supporting, no big surprise, the BC Conservatives and John Rustad. And I think it's Melissa DiGenova in my district here downtown. I would suggest you guys, if you're a renter or you're a homeowner or you want to get ahead in this country, you should probably vote the same, Conservative, and I'll get to the reasons for that in a minute. But first off, my one disclaimer, I know I get the odd guy on here that, oh, I don't like it when you talk politics. Well, that makes two of us. I don't like talking about politics either. I hate it. The entire thing of politics, I despise. I've said that many times here. If you've been a longtime viewer of my blog, I started this blog in 2012. For the first 6 or 7 years I had this video blog, I barely ever talked about politics. I didn't have to. They left us alone for the most part. It was a free enterprise system. But that all changed when the NDP came into power here provincially. I guess it's about 6 years ago. John Horgan won the election, and then they won a re-election during COVID, which was odd. Called an election at the height of COVID. Couldn't go to a gym, couldn't go to a restaurant, couldn't fly. But hey, we'll call an election. And then, of course, it was a bunch of trickery. Immediately handed the reins over to David Eby, our current unelected premier, who we'll see, he's not much of a politician, but he's our current premier. But, we've been under attack here for the last 5 years provincially, and now we've also got a socialist federal government with the Liberal and NDP alliance. So unfortunately, we've been under attack here. Not a month goes by, not even a week goes by, when some change, some new tax, some restriction is put on local Vancouver real estate here or federally by the Liberals. So I have to talk about it. People would complain if I didn't. My other disclaimer here. So again, I tell you guys, vote. I have not missed an election since my early 20s. I might have missed one municipal election in there, but federally and provincially, I've not missed an election since my early 20s. I always vote. As my dad used to say, you give up the right to complain if you don't vote. And I would tell you guys, get out there, do the advanced polling. That's what I always do. I think I'm going to vote probably around October 10th. I'll walk up to the local church here in the West End, and my wife and I, I'll be in and out in 5 minutes and place my vote. You guys hopefully should do the same. Get out and vote. For another disclaimer I give you guys is governments are not your friend. If you've read my book and you've watched my blogs, none of them are any good. Conservatives, Liberals, NDP. Some are better than others, though. It's kind of you vote for the less of the two evils, is really. And I've always been advocating you guys what I learned from my father and many of my mentors when I was younger. Vote for the party that you think is going to interfere with you the least. Take control of your life. I try and insulate myself as much as possible from any reliance on the government. As a matter of fact, I have for about 20 years now. I don't need them for anything other than renewing my passport, renewing my driver's license, and that's it. That's all I need them for. I don't need them for old age security. I don't need them for Canada Pension Plan. I don't need them for a school lunch program. I don't need them for a dental program. It's all a joke. You're paying for that with your tax dollars anyways. So they're all inept. They're all terrible. Most of these politicians, are in it for the money. They're not in to help people. Don't fall for that. Eby is a prime example of that. But vote for the party that you think is going to interfere with you the least. And in my opinion, that would be the Conservatives. They are a right-of-center party. A lot of people, the NDP would tell you they're far-right, but they're not anywhere near that. They are a right-of-center party. And that's who I would tell you guys to vote with. If you've got any ambition here, you want to buy a house, you want to save money for retirement, start a business, you've got some ambition, some drive, some work ethic, then that's who you want to vote for. Now, if you want to stay at home, smoke marijuana, play video games and all that kind of stuff, then hey, the NDP, aka the No Drive Party, is probably the party for you, because they will give you some things. They will buy your vote, will give you some income assistance, will give you a subsidized condo or leasehold property, will give you a lunch program or a dental program or whatever else. So that's how I would vote. So let me just kick it off here with an article in the Vancouver Sun here from last week. BC election, NDP and Conservatives are far apart on how to address the housing crisis. So it went on to say that as the election approaches, the reigning BC NDP have pivoted closer to the upstart BC Conservatives in a number of key issues. They just flip-flop around. Eby is trying to buy votes. Now he's saying he doesn't want to put forward or remove the carbon tax and all that. He's promising the world now. They act like they are the incoming party, not the incumbent party. And they want to change all the stuff that they've actually put in place the last 5 years. Where were you 5 years ago with a lot of these policies? But it went on to say here, BC NDP leader David Eby wants voters to know that John Rustad and his Conservatives would repeal almost all of the NDP's big moves on housing. Sounds pretty good to me. As many people pointed out on Twitter and in the comment section here, thanks David Eby. David Eby is the biggest cheerleader for John Rustad. He points out, with this here, that, hey, I was thinking about voting for John Rustad, but now that you tell me that he's going to repeal all this garbage housing stuff you've done, which has driven rents up, made homes just more unaffordable than ever right now, if you can even buy a home, little inventory. You want to start repealing some of these things like the empty homes tax, the BC spec tax, the new flipping tax, the double dips on the GST. Hey, sounds good to me. Now you've got my vote. Eby's the biggest cheerleader of all for Rustad, as many people point out. Rustad opposes nearly every measure that David Eby has taken to tackle the housing costs. I do too, and watch all my blogs on this over the last 4 or 5 years, all the damage the NDP has done, which is a lot, and I'll go through it in a minute here. Rustad has gone on to say that he intends to scrap almost all of the NDP's reforms. That's why I'm voting for him. You guys should too. The NDP's vision includes a larger and more active role in the government and nonprofits in housing, and also enabling the private sector to build more homes by forcing municipalities to accept denser housing like townhouses, fourplexes in single-family neighborhoods. I've done lots of blogs on that, guys. The fourplex and sixplex. Nobody's building those. You would be out of your mind to build a rental sixplex, risk $4 million, $5 million of your after-tax profit or after-tax money, go into bed with the NDP and rent out housing. 2 of those have to be below market. Go back and watch my blogs on this. I mean, if you want to invest in real estate, buy a one-bedroom condo, easy to rent, your best cap rate, and you're risking $650,000, $700,000 of your capital. And you don't have to get into bed with the NDP, who are like a drunken sailor. A year from now, they might put in rent control, complete rent control, where you cannot raise the rent even when the tenant moves. Now, that's okay. If you own a one-bedroom condo, call me up and I can sell it. We can sell it to an end user. I can have it sold for you within 30 days. But if you've got a sixplex that they start changing the rules on you, and it's already the cap rates don't make any sense on those, good luck trying to unload a sixplex with 6 separate units. You can't sell it to an end user. You're trapped. So I've done multiple blogs over the last couple of years on this. Go back into my archives. Use my archives, guys. I've done lots on it. The Conservatives say they want to significantly unleash the private sector. I'm all for that, with more market-focused solutions for housing while allowing municipalities to retain low-density neighborhoods exclusively for single-family homes. The other thing with this on Eby's and wanting to zone single-family areas for fourplexes and sixplexes and all that other good stuff, which nobody's building because you got to go into bed with the NDP. They don't understand that. There's a new article out in the Vancouver Sun and the Globe and Mail, if you guys have seen, on problems with the title and the restrictive covenants. So this is just another blunder by the NDP. You cannot, in a lot of cases, even build multifamily in these areas, even if you wanted to. There's cases of people in Burnaby, East Vancouver, that have houses for sale, want to do land assemblies. Maybe we can sell it to someone who will buy 2 or 3 homes or 4 homes, build townhouses. but there's restrictive covenants that won't allow it that are on title. And they have to get those removed, and it's not an easy task. So it's another thing that the NDP never talks about. It's just, all it is talking points to make it look like they're doing something. But in actuality, to try and do these things is near impossible with these restrictive covenants on here. You know, it's absolutely nuts, guys, with this government, with the NDP. Let me give you another one here. I have a group that I meet with a couple of times a year. We've got a couple of realtors in there. I've got a lawyer. I've got a couple of doctors. We talk about stock investing, real estate, of course, residential real estate, commercial real estate. I've got a commercial real estate agent in this group as well. So it's funny, over the last few years, there's a couple of guys, a lawyer and a doctor, who both used to own small apartment buildings in East Vancouver. These were, one I think was about 18 units. The other guy had about a 25 unit small apartment building. And both of them sold many years ago. One guy I think sold about 6 years. The other guy sold over 10 years ago. Made a nice profit on it. But they're both always kicking the tires like a good real estate investor does. They're always looking online and seeing what's available in the downtown, in the West End, in Mount Pleasant, in those kind of areas, Hastings, Sunrise, because they're always kicking tires. And they've been saying for over a year and a half, 2 years now in our group, that these prices just don't make sense. I don't get it. Especially with the current NDP government, which is not investor friendly. As you guys know, I've done dozens of blogs on it. They have a hate on for real estate investors. And the reason being is that, first off, we've got a rental cap here that is not honest. You know, they did a 2-year rent freeze during COVID, where we used to always get the CPI inflation rate plus 2%. Then they removed the 2% about 3 years ago, and now the NDP doesn't even give us the true inflation rate. For 2025, they're giving us 3%. It should be 4.5%. So they fudge that number too. The other thing, of course, with these older apartment buildings, you have tenants in there that have been in there for 8, 9, 10, 15 years. As a matter of fact, with those older apartment buildings, when you get a tenant in there that's maybe been in there even just since 2020 or 2021, with the increased spike in rents, once they're in, they never leave. They're not going to leave, and you can't get them out in these apartment buildings. You can only give them the prescribed allowable rent increase, which is about half, maybe even a third of what their costs and inflation, property taxes, insurance are going up every year. Probably going to go up 9% in 2025. You can only raise the rent 3%. So they're falling further and further behind. You've got people in those apartment buildings that are paying $1,200 a month, and the market value on that unit would be closer to $2,500 a month. They're also very old wood frame apartments, so expensive to maintain, expensive to insure, repair costs, all that other good stuff. These guys have been going on at our meetings for several years now saying, I just don't get it. The numbers just don't add up. The cap rates are dismal. You can't raise the rents. He says a lot of them are sitting on the market. They're overpriced, but I do see these apartment buildings getting picked off. Somebody is buying them. And for the life of me, he was telling me I can't figure out who's buying these apartments, because they obviously just have not broken out a calculator. There's far better stuff out there. You'd be better off just buying 10 one-bedroom concrete strata in the West End, older buildings sitting on valuable pieces of land. You can raise the rents, and if anything changes, you can sell them off one at a time, and you don't have $7 or $8 million sunk into one apartment building. Well, lo and behold, I'm going to give you guys a little story. So this is a website I want to promote to you guys called stories.com. STOREYS.com. Check it out. I've been using this site for a couple years, and I'm sorry I haven't mentioned it to you guys sooner. It is a fantastic site based in Toronto, but they cover commercial, residential real estate in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. It's an incredible resource. If you guys want to know what's going on with big developers, pre-sales, developers going into receivership, developers that are running into financial troubles, various transactions on there's just one recently, the Macdonald's at Main and Terminal was just sold for $80 million. I'm going to do a blog on that, music to my ears, because I'm a huge McDonald's shareholder. It's basically a real estate company, as I've often said, if you read my book, disguised as a hamburger chain. But it's a fantastic resource if you want to learn a lot of the inside stuff on pre-sales, condos, what developers are doing, what the government is doing, what they're zoning and all that stuff. There's a full section in there. They update it every day on Vancouver. Get this. I don't know if you guys this was news to me. This is who's buying these small apartment buildings that my two investor friends couldn't figure out. Who was dumb enough to buy these? Well, Eby is dumb enough to buy these. September 6, 2024, article in stories.com written by Carrie Gold. I know Carrie, very nice woman. She writes the done deal section in the Globe and Mail. She's probably featured dozens and dozens of my sales and done profiles on me over the years. She's the real estate expert here in Vancouver as far as journalist goes. September 6th story written by her. It was talked about the BC Rental Protection Fund. This was announced and established by David Eby 14 months ago, with $500 million of our taxpayer money put into this fund. So it helps nonprofit housing providers purchase and maintain older housing stock to protect renters from skyrocketing rents and displacement. Well, so they're trying to solve the problem that the NDP caused. They're the cause of a lot of the rent spikes and displacements. It's their policies that have had this huge spike. Don't make me out to be a realtor that doesn't have any sympathy or compassion. I'm all for, and I've talked about it many times, building social housing, building some below market rental and all that good stuff. But of course, it goes on to say here that the fund is responsible for over two-thirds of all the multifamily purchases in Vancouver in the past year. They have bought 33 buildings so far. 33. So I brought this to a couple of my doctor friend, and he just said it makes sense. This is who is buying these. They're overpaying grossly for these. To try and soothe a little bit of the skyrocketing rents and displacement. But of course, these aren't huge deals. These are 30 units, 40 unit deals. So we're not talking tens of thousands of units here. It's $500 million is the fund. But that's who's buying these. We couldn't figure it out. Well, we figured it out here. This fund that's established by the NDP has been buying up these buildings. And I can tell you, we went on to say, that I'm sure these landlords or these owners of these small apartment buildings are probably licking their chops with this kind of thing. These are a pretty tough sell with our current interest rate environment, not being able to raise rents. These buildings are expensive to maintain. The cap rates aren't very good. There's far better stuff out there. So there's not very many buyers for these except for the government, and that's who's buying. And we were kind of wondering, they're probably throwing out some wild prices, thinking, hey, let's throw it out there. Maybe Eby will come along and bring us an offer on this. See where it goes. Test the market. They're the number one buyer. They're buying over two-thirds of all these units. So that's where it's at. Vote October 19th, guys. Vote for the party you think is going to interfere with you the least. The NDP has done a tremendous amount of damage here. It's everything from taking out the CPI plus 2%. That was a nail in the coffin for all you renters. Watch my blogs. I don't have time to go through it in here. I've done a dozen blogs on all the blunders that David Eby, Ravi Kanon have done over the last 3 years here. Removal of the CPI plus 2%, 2-year rent freeze, not giving us the true CPI. They've lied. Last year, they gave us 3.5% for 2024. It should have been closer to 5 and a quarter, according to all the economists that I follow. So they shortchanged us by 2%. Landlords' insurance rates have gone up double digits. They've gone up over 150% in the last 3 years. Property taxes keep going up. Insurance, maintenance, repairs, all are skyrocketing, yet they're not giving us even the true CPI. You've got a new flipping tax coming in 2025. That's going to, put another nail in the coffin to pre-sales because investors buy a lot of those. You removal of the rental restriction about a year ago. That was a huge mistake. Go back and watch my blog on that. That was the one kind of oasis that first-time buyers had, being able to go into a building that had a 19-plus age restriction on it. Once they remove that, now investors could go in and buy. Same thing with the restriction on rentals. That was another huge mistake. That was where you got a little bit better price because they didn't allow rentals. They removed that, investors then came in, and the prices went way up. So these are all little things that you will never hear about a lot of times. NDP never talks about the reaction to all their things that they put in place. They only give you what they think is what you want to hear. But be honest with yourself. If you're a renter, how have things gone? Has it gotten easier for you the last 3 or 4 years, or have rents gone up, and is it getting tougher to buy a place or find a place to rent? It's gotten a lot tougher. I know it has. So get out there and vote. How you vote, I don't care. I'm voting Conservative. I would say if you've got any ambition and you've got any drive, vote Conservative. They're not going to be your white knight savior, and they're not going to be, probably not going to be noticeable what they're going to do for you. I mean, getting things turned around from the NDP is like stopping a freight train. Even if the Conservatives get in later this month, it's going to take 1.5 years, 2 years to unwind a lot of the stuff that they've done here. But get out and vote. I would say, unless you're with the No Drive Party, vote Conservative. At least they're a step in the right direction for the economy, unwinding a lot of these dumb rules and regulations they put on real estate and the Tenancy Act, and just, I think more common sense. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, see you next week.